Hello, guys. My name's Ed. Thanks for stopping by. Um, you're probably interested in data modeling. You're probably an experienced Excel user. You've probably been exposed to various data modeling techniques, and this is a summary and troubleshooting some use cases with data modeling in Excel, including PowerPivot. And you should become more familiar with pivot tables and how to incorporate data from a couple worksheets in order to do a quick big picture analysis. The purpose of the video is to show you shortcuts and tricks that eliminate hours of manual labor and possibly errors that we want to avoid in the workplace. We're going to try to be swift, but we are also going to try to be thorough. So my goal isn't really to instruct you as much as it is to go over some of the techniques that I've been taught in school or in the workplace through trainings or through literature reviews. I'm kind of a data wonk. And again, appreciate your patience. This is geared towards beginner, intermediate, and even higher level Excel users that are trying to brush up and document issues that they may have had and maybe set this aside and store it for future use. We're going to cover the fundamentals of data, how it differs from data modeling or how it integrates with data modeling. And then once you've integrated data modeling, whether to use a specific model, methodology to clean the data and make sure it works. So starting with the fundamentals, we'll move into actual examples, and you'll have data available found below in this YouTube video on how to integrate it yourself. Like I said, this is going to be a slow and steady, um, traverse through data and understanding data modeling. It's slow because it's hard work, but once you learn the fundamentals of it, you'll realize that you can slow down and you're not stressed out every second of every day or every time you have a report due because you've got 18 things to do. And these days, everybody's looking for more efficient things to do with their time, even at work. So if you get the fundamentals down, it simplifies your life and gives you the creativity and ability to do other things like visualize data, run reports, put things in PowerPoint, put them in Word, document them in Notepad, and really become a master and possibly move up in the world, right, of work. And now that's not a guarantee, but what I'm doing in this Excel workbook is showing you basically the final product. And what the final product is a spreadsheet with several columns of data. They are more or less sorted. So if you go over to column number D, or letter D, sorry, you'll see a label called change percentage. You'll see that the first row, BKX, for those of you in financial analysis and the stock market, and those who don't know, it's just one of the larger um, ticker symbols, equity, or ETF that basically follows some of the big banks. And that was the big mover yesterday. That yesterday was May 2nd or May 1st. So that would have been data that represents activity of one day, and generally one day, if it seems to indicate more movement, it's a good idea to know what stocks did well on any given day. So it's the KBW Nasdaq Bank Index at the top, and ALT or Altimmune, if you go down to row 21, that showed a change percentage of where it was 8.5%. So that's the end product. The data came from multiple worksheets, and the data is sorted by percent. Now, how did I get data from multiple worksheets together into one worksheet? There's a simple way to do it and the manual way to do it. So what I will say is I did it the simple way, but I'm going to describe the manual way and the simple way. So let's start with the manual way. Now, combining data is simple if you're looking at data from one or two worksheets. In fact, you might have several, worksheets. So in this case, I'm opening up a worksheet, and in fact, how many worksheets can you open up before it gets busy? Let's just assume you got four worksheets, and you're combining them into one. So we got four worksheets. The data comes from, let's say, SharePoint or somebody else's computer. They send it to you. You're the manager. So you got an employee sending you a worksheet. You got another employee sending you another worksheet. Another one sending you another worksheet. And you get them. You get them in your email. You have to download it. So in this case, you go to your downloads folder, and let's open one of them. This is Wednesday, May 1st. So that goes back to our question, this is data for Wednesday, May 1st. And all right, so I'm looking at the data. It came into me. This is from one of my employees. He's in charge of a watch list that I call default. The column labels are symbol, last price, change percent. So remember in the first one, we were looking at, percent moves. Okay. Um, so I'm going to select all. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to put it in one workbook. I'm going to say paste, and I'm going to do the same thing for my next model. So I go to downloads. Joe sent me something. I've downloaded it. It's a watch list called Drug Company. I've popped it open. Uh, this one has about 50 items. They range in change percent from 6 to 11 to -3. And again, I'm really looking for how these stocks in the drug watch list compare to those that are over here in what I call the default one. Okay, so I can go and do the same thing because I think it'll be easier if I put it all in one place. So I'm going to select all, Control A. Control A selects all, Control C copies it, Alt Tab switches over to my other workbook, the main workbook. I'm going to Sheet 2. I'm going to label it Drug Manufacturer because we've already discussed that that's drug company. I'm going to cut and paste, okay? And I'm going to do just one or two more. Got something called value. I've got another employee who calls his watch list value. That would suggest that these are stocks that are stable. They're not particularly expensive or inexpensive. They're considered value investments, stock that you'd keep over time. So column row 4 has Spirit Airlines. Row 6 has Guardian Health. We got row 21 has biotech. Again, I'm going to copy it. Control A. Whoops, that didn't work. We're going to Control A. I'm going to hit copy. Alt Tab. I'm going to do my third one. We're calling this value. Enter. Hitting Control V. And the last one we're looking at. Got another employee, and this employee has decided that he wants to label the stocks that he's following as a turn of activity over the past couple months. They seem to have been going in one direction, and now they're going in another. Well, we don't trust him. We really want to look at it side by side with other things. We're going to call it turn 2. And I think the first one we had was called default. So to be consistent. So now there you have it. We got 4 things. We take a cursory example and we see, okay, turn 2, he's got, something that changed 4%. Something that went up by 11%. That's Neo. Something that went up by 10%. For the most part, they're not big movers. Although CVS stocks seemed to take a dip the other day with 16% drop. We look at the value. It says, all right, we got 2%. Okay. This one. Wouldn't it be great, though, before we lop them all together, if we just did a small analysis worksheet by worksheet? So let's see. I want to click on the change percent and I want to sort it. You'll find that you can't really do it in the current format. So now I got to transform the data somehow, right? I want to transform it so that I can do some sort of calculation on it on the fly, an ad hoc calculation. So, the easiest way to do that really is if I am able to, at this point, apply what is called the table format to the data. Now, to apply table format to the data, I went over to the insert ribbon. I clicked on table and it gave me the option. It's intelligent enough to select the range of rows and columns involved, and it is intelligent enough that I don't have to really worry about it. It's telling me you're going from cell A1. It's using A1 is the top left and J20 is the bottom right. It has headers. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go to change percent. I'm going to sort it from largest to smallest. And okay, lo and behold, 1%. That's how good that table did, right? Not great. My default watch list has a few empty entries because these are older stocks that no longer exist. Facebook got changed to Meta. SPX has gotten changed to .SPX or something like that. Russell 2000 has changed, and this one, PCLN, has gone out of business. The price range is from 300 to 100, 200. So if I wanted to look at what was my most expensive stock, I'd go to the last price. I'd sort it largest to smallest. Netflix was my largest one. It was basically flat yesterday. SPY and Q went down a little bit. Microsoft went up. We got Tesla went down. All right, not something to write home about. Not something to write home about. Okay, so do the same thing. I'm going to go to insert table. It's going to estimate where the table is. I'm going to say correct. I'm going to look at the change percentage. I'm going to sort it from largest to smallest. Now, this is the watch list that I'm thinking had a lot more activity than anything I've seen so far. From this company called Mesoblast, which went up by a whopping 11%, which is pretty remarkable, to, let's just call it Johnson & Johnson, which, went up by 4%. So to make life easier, I highlight it and pick a color that I like, dark blue, and then I can maybe just select a white boldface. And I say generally these stocks are all worth looking at to me. If they're on the way up like that, you just never know when they're going to stop, correct? Okay, so I'm much happier with that particular watch list. I'm coming over here. I'm going to convert it to a table format. I'm going to sort it from largest to smallest, not something to write home about. I'm not even going to sort it much more. I'm interested in seeing how the big ones generally did. Goldman Sachs, I guess, did okay. Automobile Nation, Asbury Group, those are the ones. Penske Auto Group, those are the ones that are involved in automobile leasing and so on. So nothing to write home about on that one. And then lastly, we're going to convert another one to a table. We're going to sort it by change percent. This dude also had Johnson & Johnson like my other watch list. It has a little bit more activity, doesn't it? Space, Neo, Bausch & Lomb. These are also relatively inexpensive, so these are of interest to me. I'm going to sort them by price. Relatively inexpensive stocks are the interesting ones to me. So what you'll find is, all right, a lot of the big stocks here that we can highlight like we did before. Stocks in excess of $150 by price. Didn't do so hot yesterday. JB Hunt is a transportation company. So for the most part, I didn't really miss out much, really. But let's see how they did side by side, which is what you have over here. I fast forward over here. Let's sort them by price, largest to smallest. And I highlight them like we did before. And what are we seeing? We're seeing that among the more expensive stocks, there was either mostly negative, correct? Mostly negative, or no activity really. You have to go down really pretty far down my list of expensive stocks to Facebook to see a stock that did okay. Again, we'll Facebook. All right, now so just by looking at this one by one, am I really able to tell how my most important stocks did? Meaning by price, my most important stocks didn't do so hot. Meta platforms, is that easy to distinguish if I go through these one at a time? No, it's not. That's why I do this exercise, because technically, and that's why employers do this exercise, because this bird's eye view or big picture matters. And you did that in relatively short order. Okay, so what we did is we opened them up from our downloads folder, and unless you can think of a better way, I would have done something like, select the data from one table. Takes a while. I'm patient because I really need the information. I'm selecting the data from the fourth workbook. Okay, I'm going to the third workbook. Now, because it's in table format, when I paste it, it automatically is added to the table. So when I sort it by change percent, it's sorting successfully. And so we've got fourth and third. I'll take the values in this table. I will cut and paste them into the table we just looked at. And we'll go to the top. We'll sort it again by change percents, largest to smallest. Now we're looking at about 155 or so stocks. And the last one here, for good measure, we will add over to the table. We'll sort by change percent, largest to smallest. Since these are no longer good to me, I'll delete them since they have empty values. Okay. And again, as we had said, in terms of stocks that I think are important to the stock market, they need to have a certain level of price. So anything under 100 is relatively, anything over 100 is relatively big. Johnson & Johnson's the first one that turns up. It did do pretty good yesterday. Um, and the conclusion that we made actually was that Meta at 441 was my largest stock. And when we looked at it over here, we got to see Johnson and Johnson. That's a good one. We got to see, is that the only one? Johnson and Johnson is the big one over 100. It did okay. We'll look at, keep scrolling down, and as you can see, it's kind of a pain in the butt to scroll down, which is why I really love sorting. So I'll go to last price, sorted from largest to smallest. And after Meta, which we saw in the 400 range, actually, so what I'm showing you over here, as a matter of fact, this is data from Monday. Okay, so we got data from Monday over here, and this is data from Tuesday. So um, when I went over to my downloads folder, you notice that I was just pulling the most recent ones, and they are from a couple of days ago. Simply because I didn't sort it over here, I got data from several days ago. So just so you know, the reason we got a result here that looks a little different than over here, you'll notice that the Dow Jones is the top one in both. The NYA isn't available in both for whatever reason. Maybe it's been added. No, it's there. It's there. It's at third. And well, okay, well, lo and behold, the expensive ones, Meta's still over there actually. Meta's over there. I think we saw Meta, didn't we? Lo and behold, although the stocks, the big stocks, like Microsoft has popped into the picture where it wasn't the day before now. The day before we were at 441 on row 20. Today we are at 277. 277. So again, we're doing a side-by-side comparison. We're able to do a side-by-side comparison by doing what amounts to data modeling. And I'm gonna pause the video here, but I need to make sure that I understand where Microsoft is in the picture yesterday. So we'll go in, we'll filter, we'll apply a filter, we'll look for Microsoft, come back down to Microsoft. Meta's there. Microsoft is there. Meta's there. Let's pull up Meta just so we can have an apples to apples comparison here. Microsoft was at 396, and Microsoft and Meta. So something might have happened that I didn't pay attention to. It's earnings season. But again, that's why we do side-by-side comparison. Like right off the bat, we've noticed something. Okay, all right. So Microsoft is at 396 today. It was at, let's see. Ah, okay. I see what happened. All right, so what you're noticing here as we unfilter, again, filtering is a big part of what we do in data analysis. And unless you have everything in the table, you really can't take advantage of that. You can't take advantage of the filtering. But what I forgot to mention to everybody here is that, okay, I'm looking at 4 watch lists over here. And over here, I'm actually looking at 20 watch lists. So we are missing data. So in this introductory video, I'm only looking at, 4 watch lists. And in this one, if you scroll down, you'll notice that there's way more stocks. There's 535. Okay. So the purpose of doing this is I have to do this manually. It could take up time, so we've done it the hard way. And now I bet you want to look at it doing the easy way. All right, guys, if you've ever, worked in data analysis and you actually think about the terms that are bandied about, everything from extract, transform, and load to data modeling to data mining, by using a very simple data modeling example like the one we're using here today, we are able to actually talk about these key terms and why they were invented. So looking at this particular slide, we have the main file, which has 500 or so items and the 4 constituent worksheets. Data mining implies this esoteric symbolic language, but it's not, is it? If I go to the concatenate result worksheet, concat is a term which means put things together. Since I put together these um, worksheets, I can actually look from top to bottom, which is another way of describing mining, right? When you think of an oil rig, it goes straight down. That's what data mining is. I can't go straight down unless I put them all vertically together. They were put vertically together by me manually. There was no way around it. I had to transform the data into a table just to do that. So I extracted data and got it via email or wherever. I opened it into my downloads, extracted it into one place, put it into a table, and then basically build a pipeline, what amounts to a data pipeline. We hear that all the time. I had a pipeline to export data into one place where I can do my data mining. Now, that is a painful process, and we just discovered it as I was doing the presentation. I had 500 items in a row, but they were in segments. So this idea of data mining, extract, transforming, and loading, it's a process that's manually intensive. It requires building pipelines, and there's nothing easy about it. So we need to look at tricks of the trade and how to create shortcuts. So I wanted to introduce you to the terms pipelines, extract, transform, load, and let you know this is not really easy. So we're going to have to look beyond Excel to help us. And the clue to this particular process is concat. And concat means put things together. So how did I get that one file? Well, I certainly didn't do it manually. So in the next step, I'm going to show you what I did and how I was able to use a software tool in a big data platform to do this for me. Data mining is the objective. Now, I got all these items, and these items got to my inbox, which I downloaded. So I'm very proud to say I've got I got a handle on the data. Now, data modeling is how do I use the data to make sense of it? So we already know the data is going to come to me, and I've got it in the downloads folder. But what if it's in a place like my OneDrive or SharePoint? Well, it seems to make things easier. Well, it's much easier for the end user to go put stuff on SharePoint and OneDrive because they're not going to email me, are they? They're going to put it there. So we're moving in this direction of virtualization. What amounts to, I've got access to their computers virtually, right? I don't have their files. I don't need them to email it to me. I just need them to post it on SharePoint. I just need them to post it there on. I just need them to post it there on SharePoint. I don't need them to email it or post it on OneDrive. Okay, but over time, SharePoint and OneDrive, they actually do slow down your network. I'm sure if you've ever worked in a government environment like myself, you know how slow things can get sometimes. So SharePoint and OneDrive, might not be enough. Okay. So I'm going to try to create a pipeline where the throughput is bigger. And what I mean by throughput um, is effectively how to get data to move quicker and how to get the data to be moving in a bigger circumference, like in a bigger area, right? So like data, I want the data to be moving quicker. More data instead of less data is being moved, and a pipeline implies that it's like a big circumference. It's effectively a portal, you know. So I've I've got a little bit of software by Oracle called the Virtual Machine Manager, and the Virtual Machine Manager is a segment of a pipeline uh, to a cloud-based solution, which is uh, immense amounts of data capacity and throughput. So throughput is generated by the circumference of that pipe, correct? But the throughput, the bigger it is, the more work there is to push that crap through there. So to push it through, you're going to need a lot of processing power, and that's why they call it the cloud. So what I have to do is I got to turn it on. All right, I got to turn on my engine. It's called the Hortonworks Sandbox. It's going to take a minute or two to spin up. Um, when it does, Hortonworks, it's going to pop open. It's gonna pop open the environment, and the environment is just like we had said before. It's like SharePoint, and it's like a an instance of your cloud. And all the cloud in SharePoint are a file manager, which includes files from remote locations on your network. So Joe can go put something on SharePoint, and I don't really have to um, get an email from him, right? I can go to SharePoint if somebody administrator, writes bound can let me access it. I can access those files. Um, so in this particular case, I've fired up my, my cloud connection, my portal. We called it a virtual instance, and it's going to tell me, okay, you can see it over the internet. It's not going to be um, exposed to anybody. It's going to be exposed at a specific endpoint that they've created. The cloud has told you go to this URL. Okay, the URL there. In this particular case, for VirtualBox, it's going to provide it as 1080 on my local host. For those of you that aren't internet savvy, every computer has a IP address because it's in the workplace as a specific um, IP so that you can send and receive emails and print things and IP addresses drive that. So I'm going to type in what they asked me to type in, and let's see this for a minute. Let's spin up for a minute. I find that using Microsoft Browser is actually the best one to use. So I'm going to spin it up. So what it is, the cloud has created a pipeline, and we need to provide it with credentials. And the cloud now has exposed an IP address where I can go look at uh, these bigger files instead of using SharePoint. Um, I can I can ask my people to post things on a big data platform, and or if they aren't given access yet to the big data platform because it's complicated and so on. Takes a little bit of administration, rules. People need to get assigned a separate username and password from their Active Directory. Then the file has to be given a username and password. All these hoops and hurdles. If I don't want them to do it, I can do it all myself. So I'm going to pause the video because it's going to take a few minutes to spin up. It's saying its services are starting. It's 55 seconds. It's 15% of the way through the process. So I don't want you to wait. I'm going to pause the video. So we're back, and it looks like our cloud instance popped up, and I can tell because a lot of these items were not checked off before. This is like a cloud file manager that you'd see in Linux. If you're used to, working a Linux environment and you signed into a file manager for serving, you know, folders worth of code, whether it's HTML, JavaScript. Most Java environments have a console. The console just tells you what's contained in this collection of files. So I'm not going to bore you with the details other than maybe talk about one or two of the high level ones. So again, I'm at that address that we were told to go from the cloud provider, Oracle VM Box, and I'm really looking to. I, these things up here are just telling me like what's going on underneath the engine. Like I'm using 27% of my processing power. I've got my file manager here. I've got my resource negotiator here that connects pipelines and MapReduce that does, a little bit of extra work under the hood. So I just want to go to my files, and once files come up, I'll show you the importance of the platform and what you're able to do with it because um, it saves so much time. So there are a number of folders that are basically running files in the background to support this program, the cloud. So I just need to go to my folders section. Again, it's like a SharePoint place. You go to the users and go to your users that are generally stored in one administrative account. Um, Again, those of you that are curious and you're not super experts at file manager in a non-Windows environment, most files are given an owner. That's the name of the administrator. They're sometimes given a group and then permissions. In Linux terms, non-Windows terms, you're given read, write access, or edit, or create, or delete. So I'm looking at the same files that we were looking at that were on my previously sent to me via email and downloaded or SharePoint or OneDrive. They're in my local environment, right? Like on my desktop. But they don't, I can't, I can't really do that much with them on my desktop because I don't have the computing power, the network speed, and all those things. So the cloud is really a bigger computer with bigger networking capacity because it's going to use monolithic servers, right? And what was the other thing? Storage. So I can store bigger files. So all I did to get them into the cloud was drag my file and drop it. Okay, so I dragged and dropped. Quite literally, they're already in there because I've already done this. But just to give you an example, I'm gonna drop. Let me see if you can see it. I'm gonna drop it in. There it goes. Boom. I might get an error because it's already in there, but I may have actually successfully done it because I put it into another folder previously. All right. So again, just to show you the capacity. Okay, so there's a lot of files in there. You'll notice the names are very similar to what you've got in my local place. Okay, in my local place. 315 default. Let's see, 315 default. I go to the nuts and bolts of what we were looking at earlier. Turn to today, value, social media, all that. I dragged and I dropped it in here. Okay. I am now going to go back to the cloud, and I am going to, let's see, where am I? Let's see if I can show you what my next step is. All right, this was distracting. The top is distracting because it really is just a browser. All right. Um, so I'm going to select one of my files. It gives me a few options. I open it, rename it, permissions, which we saw over here, delete, copy, move, download. And if I hit Control and I select another file, concatenate button opens up. So I'm effectively selecting, and again, these are files that have been there for a long time. So I'm looking at Friday, April 19th. We're on May 1st. Friday, April 19th, Thursday, April 18th, Sunday, April 28th. Okay, I mean, more data than I know what to do with, but obviously I saved it because I do eventually want to look at it. So while we're here, I'm really not going to do anything other than select the first few items. Okay. Now that I've selected a few items, I'm gonna go ahead and hit concatenate. That was all of 30 seconds of work. And it would have taken me probably 30 minutes of work to effectively do the same in Excel, which we've already looked at as um, complicated. So you'll notice that my downloads folder popped up. And got a concat results. And when I click on the concat results, pretty much everything that we combined gets put together. Now that's not a very nice view, but the reason it exports it as a CSV is really important to notice as a data modeler. CSV is the preferred storage format because I can open that, I can store that, I can throw that into a warehouse, I can throw that into a warehouse. I can throw it into MySQL. I can throw it into any number of places, but for our purposes, we're going to open it in Excel. Okay, so this is where we look at extract, transform, and load, and we think about transformation again. So in Excel, we didn't have to do much with the data because it opened automatically in Excel. However, when it's in CSV, I have to specify if this data was stored as a CSV, then what happens is commas are the ones that are separating each column. The comma is the indicator of a pipe or a column. So now that I've selected column as a comma, I can finish the transform and load process. And I'm going to go ahead and insert a table like I did before. And I am going to sort by change percent like I did before. And got a lot of crap that pertains to, again, to missing, things that were not needed. 32%, 23%, and BBIG, which is a penny stock, went up by a ridiculous amount. Okay, so the bank index, like we said, and okay, that took all of 30 seconds, whereas in Excel, doing it manually, it was much harder. So what we're doing at this point is introducing the subject of data and data modeling. We all know that Excel workbooks and Excel worksheets have been commonplace So everybody from an executive to a junior level employee has kept records of information in a somewhat structured manner using workbooks and worksheets. I was a cost analyst for a few years and attended GW for my graduate degree in public administration with a focus on public finance. Great opportunity. Studied everything from management theory, economics, and how Congress passes budgets. So I did cost estimation, which was, effectively integrating worksheets with such things as an algorithm or a function. The common functions and algorithms that we used was looking at data in the future. And so you might have a column for 2024, one for 2025, and one for 2026. You're analyzing historical data, maybe from 2023, so you'll have 4 or 5 columns, and expenditures and costs. So you take the expenditures and costs, so maybe costs of acquisition, expenditures, which would be maybe maintenance and training, and then subtracting that from revenue to get, what is the net impact of a program. So in the future, the issue was, well, we know this is what it's going to cost in the future, more or less, but we don't know inflation. We don't know the exact penny. And so the use of Excel to integrate inflation or an algorithm is possible. So you might have, lookup tables and so on that ask you to look up the inflation rate for a specific column based on the projected inflation for a specific year. So it's not just straight manual input, right? So in fact, using VLOOKUPs reduces the error-prone issue of, using a lot of people putting their hands and paws on data. But the point is that there still is risk to data and how it changes. So version control becomes a problem. So maybe next year I'm updating a data set and I made a mistake and I inadvertently erased data or inadvertently changed data during the year, and we don't have a master copy. So that's the purpose of integrating data models with your data. So your data never changes. So like your raw data would be stored in a place, maybe just in an Excel workbook, but then the calculation you did on it, whether it's inflation, whether it's algorithmic, whether it's an edit, gets done in a separate workplace or a separate worksheet. At the end of the day, if you're comparing and contrasting the same type of data for a different program or a different work site, then you're doing a side-by-side comparison, which can be awkward. One workbook has data, or one worksheet has data for 2024, another one has the same year's worth of data, but in a different program, and it's in a different worksheet. So you can't mix apples and oranges because of different programs, but you can set up a staging worksheet where maybe you import stuff from both and you're looking at them instead of side by side in one, holistic area. And that is really the fundamental of extract, transform, and load, right? Because I'm extracting the data from its original place, putting it into a workbook, extracting from a secondary place, putting it into a second worksheet, and then in the third worksheet, I'm actually cleaning the data or combining the data and making sure that I can effectively work with one, source of data instead of multiple ones. And then, save myself the aggravation of trying to do things all in one place and changing it and, putting notes in places and people asking you to change it. And you're never the custodian and the manager's always asking questions and getting upset. Again, this video is really all about understanding all the things that we can do to manage data and use what is commonplace in theory and in science and in your college or university courses. It's all about data modeling and data mining. So that's why we're taking our time to understand these concepts slowly, so we understand the principles. Let's go over what we just discussed one by one. So I'll open up the worksheet now.